Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am as the chairperson of today's motion, and we are today debating under the motion that this House believes developed countries should not accept skilled migrants from developing countries. So here we have the two sides. The first one is the from the government side, and also the other one from the opposition side. So let's, without any further ado, let's start our debate today by letting the first speaker from the government side, the Prime Minister. Now is your time. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the time. So my name is Adryan, and here I would like to stand for the first speaker of the government side, especially I am as the Prime Minister. So, ladies and gentlemen, before I continue to my argument, why we believe that the developed countries should not accept the skilled migrants from the developing countries. Okay. Actually, as the Prime Minister, I would like to give a clear understanding, a clear definition about the key terms related to the motion. So, here I am underlying the characteristic. I'm not the underlying the definition of developed countries and also developing countries is very crucial. So I would like to explain it first. Developed countries, what does it mean? Okay, maybe the first country or maybe some countries are comes up in your mind when I mention about developed countries, let's say Japan or maybe US, something like that. So what kind of similarities between those countries? So the first one, ladies and gentlemen, the characteristic of developed countries is they has a high income per capita. So developed countries have a high per capita income each year. And by having a high income per capita, these countries' economic value will be boosted. Therefore, the amount of poverty can be overcome. So, if the developing countries still work or still struggling with the poverty, developed country has because of the high income from the developed countries, they can overcome poverty. The second characteristic is security is guaranteed. The level of security in developed countries is more secure compared or rather than the developing countries. This is also a side effect of the sophisticated technology in developed countries. With sophisticated technology, security facilities, and the weapon technology also developed into the better. And the third characteristic is that the level of the health, the guarantee, the health dimension of the developed countries is guaranteed. In addition to ensuring the security, health in the developed countries is also guaranteed. This is characterized by a variety of adequate health facilities, such as hospital, medical staff who are trained and reliable. Therefore, mortality rates in developed countries can be suppressed and the life expectancy of the population can be high. In addition, with the adequate health facilities, population development in developed countries can also be controlled. And the fourth characteristic is low unemployment rate. Okay, this one is very crucial related to the motion. The characteristic of the developed countries is those countries has low unemployment rate. In developed countries, the unemployment rate is relatively small because every citizen gets a job. Okay, the next characteristic is mastering in science or technology. The inhabitants of developed countries tend to have mastered science and technology from which new useful products such as the industrial pendant lights were introduced to the market. Therefore, in their daily life, they will have also sophisticated technology and modern tools to facilitate their daily life. And then the next characteristic is the level of export is higher than import. The level of export in developed countries is higher than the level of import because of the superior human resources and also technology posed. Okay, those are the characteristics of developed countries. And then next, I would like to give a clear understanding about the developing countries, characteristic of developing countries. So it's like the the opposite of the developed countries characteristic. The first one, the income. The income of developing country is low. Second, security is not guaranteed in developing countries. And the third one is the health facility is still minimal or minimum. The fourth one is the uncontrolled population development. So we know in developing countries they have the population rate is so high. And then the fifth characteristic, the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate in developing countries is very, very high. And the sixth characteristic is import are higher than export. So ladies and gentlemen, after knowing the different characteristic, the opposite, the 180-degree opposite characteristic between the developed countries and developing countries, it can be seen that it is clearly enough to say that developed countries doesn't need any kind of help from developing countries, especially accepting the skilled migrant from developing countries. Why? Yeah, because we know that developed countries has more than enough capacity to in a development in the country development. So there are no reason why developed countries should accept the skilled migrant from developing countries. And also, if the developed countries accept the skilled migrant from the developing countries, it will give an bad impact to the developed country itself, and it will be delivered by my second speaker, Deputy Prime Minister. So I think that's all from me. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for the Prime Minister of your speech. And now, without any further ado, let's move to the opening opposition speaker, the leader of opposition. The time is yours. All right, thank you so much for the time, ladies and gentlemen. So before I continue to reply and also going to my argument, I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Adryan, and here I would like to stand for the first speaker from the opposition team. Especially, I am the leader of opposition speaker. Okay, so today we are debating under the motion that this House believes developed countries should not accept skilled migrants from developing country. Well, as the previous speaker from the government, the first speaker, the opening government speaker, has said that developed countries and also developing countries has 180 degrees different characteristic. Well, that's why developing countries find a better place to become a developed country in order to make a better a significant improvement in development. Well, why developed countries should accept skilled migrants from developing countries? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I underlined that the previous speaker, the government side, mentioned about the developed countries doesn't need any kind of help or support from the developing countries, because they have so many capability in running their country. Well, it's not about helping the developed countries. It is about the global economic. It's talking about the global economy. It's not talking about the relationship between two countries. It's talking about global economy. What does it mean by global economy? So, international migration of skilled person has assumed increased importance in recent years, as the impact of globalization, revival of growth in the world economy, and the explosive growth in information and communication technology. We are talking about skilled migrants, not the common migrants. Those persons has something special to be improved, to be let's say, to be solved. So these people should not just common people come to another country to live. They come to another country to work. So as the effect of globalization, nowadays there's no any barriers to people go to another country or having what's that having collaboration with another country. For the example, like this, talking about migrants from developing countries go to work in the developed countries. And also revival of growth in the world economy. We are now facing I would like believe to the developed countries can become a developing countries if their what was that their principle to not receive any kind of worker or migrants that having specialty or maybe skill. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we talk about the developed countries should not accept skilled migrants, I would like to say no. It's better for the developed countries not to talking about not don't stop or don't deny skilled migrants from developing countries. You can what's that all right you can just control or make a regulation to control the process of this migration. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that's all for my idea. Thank you so much. Okay, so the leader of opposition, thank you so much for your speech. And the leader of opposition spent 5 minutes and 12 seconds. Now, without any further ado, let's move to the next speaker. The second speaker from the government, the Deputy Prime Minister. Time is yours. Okay, thank you so much for the time. Ladies and gentlemen, here I ask the second speaker from the government side, the Deputy Prime Minister speaker. So, ladies and gentlemen, as what my Prime Minister has mentioned before, that developed countries and also developing countries has 180 degrees characteristic indifferent. And if we have or we should accept the skilled migrant from developing countries, it will give some impacts that can be unbeneficial for both the receiving country and also the home country. Okay, I will start by rebuttal the opening opposition speaker, the leader of opposition speaker. So the leader of opposition mentioned that this is because the globalization, this is because the global economic. Well, if we're talking about globalization, if you're talking about the economic growth, the economic of world, why skilled migrant considered to work to another country rather than work in their country south? Why don't they improve or maybe make a growth, make a contribution in their country development, so the country become better, become a developed country, and they don't have to let's say they don't have to work to another country. Okay, let's see the effect of the of receiving skilled migrant from developing countries. So the first one, ladies and gentlemen, it will increase it will increases in the population, with the consequent adverse effect on existing social institutions. An immigrant's adoption tends to replicate the life of his home community, idolizing many parts of it, and the receiving country. This result in the information of a social suborder and the right of class of immigrant workers. When an immigrant observes his situation differently from a native observer, integration will be tough. However, in the vast majority of situations, integration results in the immigrant losing his or her identity, whether it is in culture, political, linguistic, or etc. When significant social and ethnic changes are undertaken by immigrant groups, the assumption that integration implies assimilation of the immigrant culture and conversion to the surrounding culture loses its relevance. Some immigrant rejection of integration and predisposition to self-marginalize can be politically and socially harmful. And the second one is increase in the demand for goods and services. Institution and economic system in developing nations are frequently inadequate to meet the requirements of the native population. When population imbalance is aggravated by migration, measures aimed at resolving national problems become ineffective, despite the fact that medical, social, municipal, educational, nutritional, and other services are scarce in emerging countries. Their economic have performed well during the last 35 years. Well, however, this success has not prevented exclusive, concentrated, and conflictual development. Exclusive because almost 35% of the population has not participated in the benefit of such development. Concentrated because income distribution patterns have not changed, and conflictual because of continuous and growing confrontation over the distribution generated by development. The consumption pattern of privileged sectors have become incompatible with the social integration of the majority immigrant minorities. The participation of immigrants in the productive process, together with uneven development, increases tension between the ruling classes and groups which receive few benefit from development. This opens the way to solution by force. So, ladies and gentlemen, those negative effects for the developed country itself. And if we see for the developing countries, it will give an impact effect too. If the skilled migrants from developing countries go to developed countries to work, the developing countries will facing a lack, or maybe facing a stuck in the development, because they are lack of these skilled people. So, ladies and gentlemen, why it is unbeneficial, or maybe it is unimportant to accept skilled migrants from developing countries in developed countries? I think that's all for me. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for the Deputy Prime Minister for your speech, and you spent 6 minutes 47 seconds. Okay, now without any further ado, let's listen to the opening opposition speaker, the second speaker from opening opposition, Deputy Leader of Opposition Speaker. The time is yours. Well, yeah. Thank you so much for the time. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Adryan, and here I would like to stand for the second speaker of the the opening opposition. Especially, I am as the deputy leader of opposition speaker. So, ladies and gentlemen, clearly that developed countries in here is very let's say very sombong. Why? Because They believe in their capacity, and they don't need any kind of cooperate. They don't need any cooperation with another country, even it is developing countries. So yeah, it is very nonsense. Why? Because developed countries can be also developing countries if they are lack of skilled people, right? So why developed countries should accept rather than as my leader opposition speaker has mentioned that rather than you deny the skilled migrant from developing countries, why don't you just apply a regulation? Okay, here I would like to deliver my argument. So you can just you are worried about the, as the Deputy Prime Minister has mentioned, that they are worried about the increase of population, the capacity of goods and services. Well, why don't you just apply a policy related to this current issue? Because if you are denying any skilled people, you will just merugikan yourself. So this is our solution. Apply a policy with use of three key terms. The first one is flexible, efficient, and the third one is transparent. I will start by the flexible first. So, developed countries permit increased supplies of foreign workers when demand is hot, but restrict access to foreign worker when demand is down. It will give you, as the developed countries, a power to control the amount of migrants that come to the developed countries. Not all of the developing countries migrant can come to your countries. You can control, you can manage these people by doing the flexible like this. When you are when the need is increase, you can open your door. But when the need is low, just restrict it. Okay, then efficient. What does it mean by efficient? So developed countries can, if you were worried about the goods and services, you can apply a a pattern of work for this migrant that work in your developed countries. And then transparent. What does it mean by transparent? This means that every kind of regulation, every kind of law that is applied in your country, in the developed countries, should be well known for the skilled migrants, so they can understand clearly about the rule, or maybe the law that exists in this country. And those three key terms will lead to one solution. It will give you a control to manage migrants that coming from developing countries to the developed countries. So do you don't have any worry to related to the explosion of population? No, because you can manage it. So I think that's all for my argument. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for the deputy of leader opposition team. Especially the deputy leader of opposition speaker. You spent 5 minutes 12 seconds. Yeah, thank you so much. So, without any further ado, let's hear from the closing government, the member of government. The time is yours. Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the honorable of educator, and also the timekeeper, and every debaters today that sit down under the motion. This help leave developed countries should not accept skilled migrants from developing countries. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, as the closing government, we are actually agree with the opening government, right? They've mentioned the first point is developed country has capacity, has a better a better facilities and also resource in development compared with the developing countries. If the opposition team say that we are sombong or something like that, no, we are not sombong. So we are considering the effect of accepting skilled migrants in positive and negative, and we see that this if we accepting skilled migrants, if we accepting as the developed countries, if we accepting the skilled migrant from developing countries, it will give us more unbenefit rather than a benefit for us. Yeah. So I would like to bring it to, let's see what is the unbeneficial for the for the developing countries itself that send their no for the developing countries. So ladies and gentlemen, developing countries, the characteristic is they have very very the unemployment rate of their country is high, right? And then why their skilled migrants go to developed countries? If the developed countries accept these people, and how can the developing countries exist? I'm sorry. Not exist. How can the developing countries sustain? I mean, they will lose much of their skilled people. This is their hope to make their country become a developed. So if they are letting their skilled migrants to go to the developed countries to work, well, it's not beneficial at all to developing countries, right? It will be different case if you are letting people to study in developed countries or in a better country. If you are letting the study abroad, you will let the people to learn from another country and then go to your country again, back to your their home country, and then they will give their contribution in development. But if you talk about skilled migrant, if you talk about skilled worker, you will just letting your hope in developing your countries, and you will aren't beneficial at all. So ladies and gentlemen, this will create a what's that the unbalance in the economic world, because the country of developing countries can very possibility have a very big possibility to not what is it the poverty of this country will increase more if they are letting their skilled migrants go, their skilled people go. Yeah, I think that's all for my speech. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for the closing government, the member of government speaker, for your speech, and you spent 5 minutes and 7 seconds. So let's move to the closing opposition. The opposition member of opposition. Now is the time for yours. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are from the closing opposition, and especially as the member of opposition, we are disagree or contrast with the motion that they believe developed countries should not accept skilled migrant from developing countries. So I think developed countries should accept. We think why? So the opening opposition underlined the globalization and also the economic growth. The economic growth, and also the explosive growth in information and communication technology. During the globalization, the status of economic is not anymore just in internal of the country. A country, the economic of certain country, especially in developing countries, can be increased or can be can be better by doing cooperation with the developed countries. So, when skilled people from developing countries are sent to the developed countries, especially, actually, it's not free, right? The developed countries will give, or maybe will bring, or will change it with the supply, or maybe the talking about money, something like that. So it is not free. We're not just letting these skilled people to the developed countries. Well, another that if our skilled people go to the developed countries, it is not it's not totally unbeneficial for us as the developing countries. Besides, we also give something. Also, we receive something from developed countries. The skilled people also will make the developing country's name itself become good, because it is proof that developing countries also have has skilled people that can work, that can compete with people in developed countries. So another that, if you are not letting the skilled people in from the developing countries, it will make the kesenjangan economy between countries, and it will make the crisis monitor around the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to believe that the developed countries should accept skilled migrants from developing countries. Rather than they are denying, they can just apply regulation to control it. And if they have control it, it will make easier to select and also to overcome any kind of bad impact, negative effect that may comes to the developed countries. I think that's all. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you so much for the closing opposition speaker, the member of opposition. You spent 5 minutes and 3 seconds. So now go to the next speaker, the closing government, the government whip. The time is yours. Okay, thank you so much for the time. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am the government whip. My name is Adryan, and here we are clearly understand that we are debating under the motion that this House believe developed countries will not accept skilled migrants from developing countries. Well, before, so all of the government speaker has mentioned that they are agree. We are stand to agree. We are stand to not to agree that developed countries do not accept skilled migrants, even they are. I'm not sorry. Migrants from developing countries, even they are skilled migrants. Why? Okay, so let me clearly explain the first one, ladies and gentlemen, from the government side. Especially Prime Minister has mentioned that developed countries has the characteristic that very can be said full enough to in a development. They have a high low in per capita. Their employment rate is high. Their poverty is low, and then they have the number of health, security, technology, and communication is good. Rather than developing countries, it is 180 degrees different from the developed countries. The unemployment rate for their country is very high, and also their health, security, and education is less than the developed countries. So we are suggesting, rather than if you're just applying for work in the developed countries, why don't you just develop your own countries? For the skilled migrants, why don't you just develop your developing countries? It will make your countries become better, right? Okay. Another thing, if we are still want to still accepting the skilled migrant from developing countries, it will give an effect to the developed country itself. As the the government has mentioned that this negative effect will give you unequal, or no. It will make the explosive population. It will grow the population rate, and it will make the developed countries can be developing countries, which is. And also, why this motion can be can be clearly stand with the government side, because the opposition team only talking about the globalization and talking about the rule, but they don't understand about the effect that will be received by the receiving country. So, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, I would like to clarify that we are proud to mention, we are proud to declare that we agree that this house, especially the developed countries, should not accept skilled migrant from developing countries. I think that's all from my argument. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for the government whip for your speech, and now let's move to the opposition whip. The time is yours. Okay, thank you so much for the time. So my name is Adryan, and here I'm studying for the closing opposition as well as the opposition whip. Yeah, we clearly understand that today we are debating under the motion that this house believe developed countries should not accept skilled migrants from developing countries. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is a little bit funny, a little bit confusing. Why? Because the opposition team clearly has mentioned the solution to overcome the negative impact of the accepting skilled migrants by saying that you can the developed countries can apply a regulation or the policy, which is you can have the power to control the flow of migration. So yeah, it is actually another point why the opposition team actually can be win this motion, can be make the developed countries accept skilled migrants from developing countries. Because if you are seeing the negative effect for another country, we all know that developing countries is now more than developing countries is the number of developing countries is more than developed country. So if you are letting developing countries struggle by themselves, it will make kesenjangan economy around the world, and it will make decreases moisture around the world, right? And now, the effect itself is not just for the developed countries. It can make the global economic unstable, because the mindset of the developed countries are like the government has mentioned. So I would like to just mention that the opposition team has mentioned that the current condition we are living in the middle of the globalization, where many kind of communication technology and also the information can be accessed by anyone. So it is not anymore like the nightmare for the developed countries, since the solution is by applying the policy. Yeah, the government always said about the characteristic of their country. I'm sorry, the characteristics of developed countries, which is they say that it is very, very more than enough, or they can so capable Well, that's why the developing countries send their skilled migrants. No, 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 send the skilled people from this developing country come to the developed countries because they see that the developed countries has the capacity to facilitate them. If the developed countries has no capacity to facilitate them, that's why they come to that developed country. This is nonsense if you are afraid of the explosive growth of population, because not all of the immigration is a skilled people. These skilled people will also give you benefit. These skilled people will not bother your economy. They will work well because they have skill to work. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is nonsense that the negative effect or maybe the unbeneficial that mentioned by the government's side has delivered. So we are proud of to declare that by our solution, the developed countries should accept skilled migrants from developing countries. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much for the opposition whip. So you spend 5 minutes and 7 seconds. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our debate today. So, thank you so much for all of the speakers from the government side and also the opposition side. The result will be delivered by the adjudicator, but there is no verbal adjudication now. So, thank you so much. You may leave this room. Thank you.